So trees, okay. In the data structure, in the algorithms, trees is very well studied. It means that people use tree many times, and then tree is very optimized in terms of the computation time. So the tree data structure has been well studied by computer scientists and mathematicians, and there are many well-known algorithms for processing and traversing trees. So that's why the data structure like the XML, JSON, basically they are adopting tree. And it is very common to use the traversal or when we do the processing for the tree. Yeah, it will be very optimized. So both XML and JSON are able to leverage this. The tree can be used for the data as well as the schema. So we can also use the XML schema, and we can also use JSON schema. So schema represent the structure of the data. So if you have ERD, if you have ERD or the entity relationship diagram, it is a schema. And you can have the JSON schema, you can have the XML schema, and they represent similar to ERD. In this case, yeah, if you want to use the ERD, it's okay. If you want to use the JSON schema, it is also fine. Or if you want to represent your data with XML schema, it is also fine. Okay? So those three actually they represent the same thing. So XML schema shows the structure of the data in the XML format, and the JSON schema display the structure of the data in the JSON format. So the only difference is the format. Now let's see the XML schema for the book. When you look at this data, you have the XS. Okay, XS it means the XML schema, and the element name is book. Now we have the XS, the complex type. It means there will be a lot of unstructured data. So this unstructured, we call it complex. Now it will be a sequence. So the sequence contains of the first element, which is type, and the data will be string. The second element will be authors, and the authors contain another complex type, and it is a sequence of an element, we call it author, and the data type will be string with the maximum of authors are 5. And we will close the element. The next element is date, and we have the data type as year. And the next element is publisher with the minimum occurs 0. It means if you have no publisher, no problem. And there will be an option. So this is a simple type because you can choose among the option. For example, this option requires a string data type, and the value will be a choice, whether it is Springer or MIT Press or Harvard Press. So this is a choice. and you can put into the publisher data. At the end, you just close the element, close the sequence, and close the complex type. So this is the schema using the XML format. Is it easy? It's not easy. So that's why many people, they do not want to use this one because it is complicated. But some companies, they want to use this one because when it shows this complication, it is difficult for other people to attack, or it is for a security reason. This is JSON schema. If you look at this schema, it is easier than the XML, but you need to define what will be the schema draft you want to refer to. So what is the data type? In this case, I'm going to use object. So what are the properties? So the properties here, I will have a book, and the book is an object. So the properties of this book will have at least 4 attributes. The first attribute is string, the second attribute is authors, and the type is array, and the minimum item is 1, the maximum item is 5, and the items will be a type of string. And the date will be a string, and the patterns will be something like this. Can you understand? Because this is regular expression. So the regular expression, usually we use it for the text. And most probably you will use this in the text analytics. So we have 0 until 9. It means it is digit. So any number 1, 2, 3, 4 until 9. And the number will be 4. 4 numbers. So you know, if it is 2007, then it means we have 4 numbers. 2025. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 numbers. So that's the meaning by 4 in this way. So the other things, this one and this one, is to represent it is a string. So the publisher, in this case, we have a string and enum. Enum means enumeration. Because this is enum, this enumeration. It is one of the data types that we can use in Java. And there is an option whether you can choose Springer or MIT Press or Harvard Press. From this data, we need to enter the value of title, authors, and date. So it is required. Required means you need to at least have one value. Additional properties, false. So it means you do not need to have any additional attributes. Required book. So this book is required. So at least you have one book. And additional properties, false. Okay. So this also something complicated, because you need to understand what is the data type, okay, whether it is string, or sometimes it can be an array, or sometimes it can be an enumeration, and you need to understand whether it is required and etc. So all those things should be in the text format. But yeah, this is easier than XML. So this is the element of the title. Yeah. This is the same with the XML that we saw before. This is the element date, and this is the publisher. So you can see what is the difference between the JSON and XML. Now we can do like bootstrapping. So bootstrap the schema language. It means when you create the XML schema, it is written in XML. And when you create the JSON schema, it is written in JSON. So if you want to do something like changing the format, for example, I have the format of XML and I want to change this one into JSON. Or if I have a JSON and I want to change into XML. So actually now there are many tools. It means you can choose either XML or JSON for your data format. And if you need to change, it's not complicated. It is not difficult. So yeah, in this case, you can see this is not on a website freeformatter.com. So it is a tool to convert this XML. In this case, it is book ID MCD. It is not McDonald. It is MCD, Modern Compiler Design, even though it is MACD. But the author is this guy and the publisher this. And if you want to change into JSON, then we have the ID is MCD, the title is Modular Compiler Design, and the author is this guy, and the publisher is Springer. So you can easily convert into the format either from XML to JSON or JSON to XML. Maybe you can try. Yes. So in this free formatter, they have a lot of format. Okay, so you can change from XML to JSON. You can change from JSON to XML. You can also change from HTML. So if you change, if you have HTML, and then you can change to something, you can reformat. Okay, so sometimes you need to make the alignment, or you need to find out whether the HTML is already safe or not. So you can format the HTML for the desired indentation level. So this is, we call it as format. And yeah, there are so many other formats. Okay. Like this one, you have the XML to JSON. So if you go put the JSON here, and then you can see the XML format. Okay, you can try by yourself if you want to know how to convert this one. Now, the next is about the REST framework. So in Django, we need to apply some kind of framework to deal with the data in the web. So one of the most popular framework, we call it REST framework. So we are going to learn what is the REST framework. I think you hear a lot of things about API. People always say that API, get only the API, and then you can connect to a company. Get the company API, then you can connect to the data. Just try to find out the API, and then you can extract the data into your computer. So actually, what is API? So API means application programming interface. It is a set of clearly defined methods of communication among various component. So let's say in a company, they have the backend system. And you are, as a user, you want to access this data. But of course, the company, they do not want to share all the data. So they can share only the data that they want to share. So they will create something. They call it as API. It is the interface. And then you can do any programming for the application. So this interface will connect to the data that you request. And after you request something, it will respond to the users. So not all the data from this database you can access. Only some data that are available, and it is based on your programming. So there are some API types. We call it private API. The private API, it is only for the internal company use. We can have partner API. Partner API means only specific business partner can use the API. For example, because I cannot access the Korean API, I'm using the Uber. Okay, so Uber has Uber Eats. I think if you connect to Kupang, Kupang also have the Kupang Eats. They have also the Kupang for the online shopping. So they have the API. And if they have the Uber, they have the vehicles or the car sharing. The car will be connected to the Uber Eats. So it means the vehicle will be connected to the restaurants nearby. So they will connect to the API. And there will be another kind of API, we call it public API. So this API is available for public. For example, if you use the Google Books, and it is free and you can use it. So for example, if you refer to so this is an API from Uber. They give you a kind of tutorial. So if you want to connect to the Uber API, so you need to register your app, and then you need to get the authorization. So who are you? Okay, so you need to have the client ID, and then you need to check what is the secret password and what is the server token. So usually these kind of things you need to get. They will specify what are the requirements for you to access their API. So it's not this is not a public API. It is a partner API. So only the partners can access, and then maybe only like the driver of Uber or maybe the restaurant, they can access to this API. And you can see that some companies, they define what programming language that you can use to access the API. So in this case, you can use curl, Python, Java, iOS, and Android. This is another API. It is public API. So there are so many API where it is publicly available. I'm not sure about what you are going to do in your team project, but if you need those API, you can try to leverage. For example, maybe books. Okay. So there are many API like Google Books. Okay. So in Google Books, they provide the API. So it means you need to have at least the Google ID. When you access to the Google ID, Google will give you the client ID, the client secret, and also how to access to the Google Book API. Then you can use this one into your system. So this is another API example you can use for the Google developers. So this is the Google API client. So in the Google API client, you can use some kind of the Google libraries in order to access to your computer. Let's say if you are using Mac, so you need to use the virtual environment, and you need to use this way to install the Google API client. If you're using Windows, you need to use this way to create the virtual client, and then you can use it in your computer and so on. Yeah. So for a data exchange, it requires a protocol. Okay, they call it a protocol. SOAP and REST, SOAP and REST. So sometimes we call it just SOAP, REST. There are two protocols that most widely used. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. It is a messaging protocol specification for exchanging structured information in the implementation of web service in the computer network. The other protocol, we call it REST or REST. It is representational state transfer. So someone named Roy Fielding, it described the architecture style of the network system. In these days, people use REST framework more than the SOAP. So REST, it is the representational state transfer. It is a software architectural style, and we use this one. If you still remember CRUD, okay, do you remember? When you do the CRUD, it means you will have the backend, which is your database, and you will have the front end, which is the user interface. And then you need to connect the front end to your database, whether you are going to create a data or whether you are going to read data or whether you are going to update your data or delete the data. Now, using the REST or this, we call it as REST API, we can also do the same like CRUD. We can create, we can read, we can update, we can delete. When we do the CRUD, actually, we use the SQL. However, when we use the REST API, we need to use the command from the REST API. So we need to use post. So post means we need to create a new resource. Get, it means we are going to read the existing resource. Put, it means we are going to update the existing resource. And delete, it means we are going to remove the existing resource. The function is the same, like CRUD, but the name is different. Okay? So only the name is different with the CRUD. So whenever you have the API, most probably they will use the REST API, and you need to use the post, get, put, and delete. And this REST API can be in a format of JSON, and it can be also in a format of XML. And yeah, it will be in the HTML. So this REST API will connect to your database or it will connect to the server. So for example, this one, I don't know if it is still working or not. So there also a web. So this is the API marketplace. So if you do your team project and if you have if you need some data from the API, you can search on this API. So there are many free API that you can use and you can put into your PyCharm environment. What is the advantage of using REST? So there are some comparison about the SOAP and REST. People use SOAP in old days, but nowadays they try to use REST. The style is different. The style of SOAP is more in the protocol, but the REST is more about the architectural style. So the architectural style it is more like JSON format. The function in SOAP it is more in the function driven, or you need to make a class. You need to make function like in Python. But for the REST API, it is mostly about the data driven. So it is based on the data. And the data format only use XML. When you use the REST API, it permits many data formats. So you can use HTML, you can use XML, you can use JSON. So that's why people now like REST API more than the SOAP. The security, the security is almost the same. You can use the web service security and you can use the SSL. This is the security layer. In the REST API, you can use the SSL and you can use the HTTPS. That's why nowadays there are many websites they use HTTPS because they are trying to leverage the REST API for the security. For the bandwidth, it requires more resources and bandwidth, but the REST API it shows that it requires only fewer resources and it is lightweight. About the data cache, cannot be cached. Cache means it cannot be saved in the client. And the REST API, you can cache, you can put into the client environment. So for example, you have cookies. So you can put the data in your computer cookies. That's why people nowadays, they do not want to use SOAP and they want to use REST API more. And so on. Okay, so the payload handling needs no knowledge about the API, but in the SOAP, there is a strict communication. And this is just another kind of database structure about the ACID. ACID means the ACID component of the database. I will skip that one. So, okay, before doing the example, so it is good to install the framework. So let's install the Django REST framework. And then let's continue with the basic REST. So I will install this one. So the installation, you can go to the terminal. Okay. In the terminal, you can install pip install Django REST framework. So after you do the installation, now let's try. Um, I will make it a little bit quick, okay? Because I think if you understand the Meet exam, it will be easy for you to create the app and then to create the model and etc. So let's create a new app. So we can do with the start app post. Maybe for me, I will use this. Yeah, I think some of you have problems with the tools. So let's just do with the tools run minutes.py. So let's start the new app, and the new app name is post. Okay, so I think you understand this one. So there will be a new app post, and then after I have the new app, now let's consider the models. Okay, so this is the models. So we have four columns or four attributes: title, content, created, and updated at. So those two are the time data. And then in the admin, we can put a post. Okay. So you can go to the admin.py. We have the post here. And then we need to have a new setup in the settings.py. In the settings.py, okay, let's make a new. Okay. Now it is, I think, the new version of Django, they can automatically add this one whenever you start the app. Okay. So we have post apps post config, and then yeah, the same like what you did in the meeting exam. Make migration, migrate, and create the super user. So make migration, and then migrate, and then create super user. So the user, I will use user, and then the email address, you can define any email address. Okay, anyway, the password, I will just use the standard password. Okay, so everything set up with the username, user. So run the Django, and then it add the three data into the admin page. So I will just go to Django after I run it. This is the JSON. So I need to run the Django project. Okay, I need to run this. Okay. Mhm. Ah, it's close. Mm, The admin is not there. Maybe I need to put about the admin with Maman. Why it is deleted? Mm, this one. Okay, I need to make sure that the admin appears. Okay. No install update the label admin. Okay, it seems that I cannot use the admin. Okay, let me just use the database. Let me test the connection. Okay, the database appears. Okay, let me just mix the data from here. Mm, okay, the data is, what is the data? The first post is hello world, the second post is function world, and the third post is algorithm world. Check it. This is just for the example. Now I want to add a title. First post. First post is the title and the content will be hello world. And then let the time is today. And the updated ad is today. And then I will make another data, which is a second post. And then a function world. And then the data is also today. And then the third data will be the third post. So maybe this is about the algorithm work. And this will be for today. And this is also for today. Okay. So I'm going to put it into the data by submit. So if you use the data from this side, you need to use like this way. Okay, so I have three data. Now, let's put the REST framework into the settings. Okay. So in the settings.py, you have the post as the new app. And now let's put the REST framework. So REST framework, it is the framework that we are going to use as the API. Okay. So REST framework, let's put it into this one. So we are going to use the REST framework as one of the application in our chain. After that, we can do something with the REST framework. We call it serializers. So the serializers means we want to make sure that every data that we have, it will appear in the web API. So I will just copy and paste this one and create serializers.py in the folder post. So in the folder post, let's make a new file, Python file. We call it serializers. So, oops, maybe the Django framework is not installed properly. Okay, I will install again. Okay, install it again. There's something wrong with this computer. I don't know. Okay, so it seems everything is okay after I do the installation in this PyCharm. And if you can see here, there is a class. Okay, this is a class of post serializers. So I'm going to show the ID, title, content, created at, and updated at. And then let's create fuse.py in the post folder. So I'm going to use this one. So in the fuse.py, okay, you can just copy and paste from the PowerPoint and then put it into the fuse.py in the post. So I will explain more about this one a little bit later. And then we can create the urls.py in the folder post. In the folder post, you can create the urls.py, urls.py. Okay. So I will explain later about this one more. And we need to include the API. So we need to include the API in the urls.py in the parent folder. So in the parent folder in the urls.py, we need to put this one path. So include is an error because you need to import it. Okay. So we finish everything. We have the link from the parent to the post.urls. And then from this urls.py, we can go to the fuse. And then in the fuse, there will be two functions. The first is the post list, and the second is post detail. So we will take a look what is post list and post detail. Now let's run your code. Oops. Error. No install app label admin. This is okay, let me close for my admin. Mhm. Okay. Okay, can you see? Now we can have a Django REST framework. What happened to this one? I think the date format in the database does not match with the REST framework. So that's why it becomes null. Mhm. Okay, this is the date about the Unix. Okay, anyway, this is state, okay, but they don't show properly here. Okay, let's see what we can do. Okay, let's see the detail. What happened if we look at the fuse.py? Yep. So the first class from this view.py, we are using the list API view. And in the list API view, we are going to check all the objects. What does it mean? Post. It is the table that we created with this post. Objects, we want to get all the objects from the database, which is from the post, and all. So we want to get all the data. And for the serializer class, we are using the post serializers. It means that we are connecting to the serializers.py. In this case, I'm using 5 columns. The column from ID, title, content, created at, and updated at. So all of them appears in the web. So ID, title, content, created at, updated at. Okay. The post detail. Okay. Post detail means I would like to retrieve the API view and I want to get also all the objects and it also connects to the post serializer. If you go to the URLs, so you can see this one, int pk. What does it mean? This is the integer value from the data. So if I put the API 1, then I can see the data ID 1. If I put this one 2, then I can see the data ID 2. If I put this one 3, then I can see the data number 3. Okay. So that's the meaning by integer with the pk. Pk is the primary key. So if you look at the data number 1, then you will see only the data number 1. Now let's okay, let's have a break. Okay, I will continue the break.